This is ACOFAE. Laura Marie and Jessica Marie proudly present A Court of Fandoms and Exploration, a podcast. Fair warning, everything the hosts say is explicit, full of spoilers and adult content and shall not be used against them. They have opinions. Let's try not to drag anyone for expressing themselves and just have fun for an hour. We all deserve it.
This episode does not have any major spoilers outside of Blood and Honey, but there is mention of Shadow and Bone, The Vampire Diaries, The Crown of Gilded Bones, Throne of Glass, Harry Potter, and Crescent City.
Everybody, and welcome to A Court of Fandoms and Exploration, your weekly deep dive into the YA literature and fandoms that we love. I'm Laura Marie.
And I'm Jessica Marie.
And today we are discussing Blood and Honey, Book 2 in our little audio versus reading experiment. So if you're new here, Jess, why don't you refresh us?
So we had an episode a couple weeks ago talking about the difference between our reading experiences, whether you listen to your book via audio or physical or whatever way you decide to consume the book world. That being said, with Gods and Monsters coming out, we thought it would be a good idea to kind of basically conduct our own experiment in our opinions of the Serpent and Dove series. So Laura, as this is a reread for her, she went ahead and listened to Serpent and Dove and Blood and Honey on audio while I was reading the physical book to see if our opinions, what the experience would be like, if our opinions would differ or change or what have you. So here we are in our Blood and Honey episode. And Laura, she listened to this one and I read this one.
And I think everyone should be very clear. I do not like this book. I do not like this series. Jess, tell me your opinion.
Oh my God. It was the way I felt with the first book. I don't want to say I liked the first book. I think Lou carried the first book. I think that's why I liked it. Did I like the book itself? But did I like Lou? I liked Lou. And I also, casting her, because Peachy Queen Cosplay has done so many cosplays and reels and TikToks, I had her in my head the whole time, even when so that was a really good point of reference. The fan art was a good point of reference for me for Reed. I didn't like their relationship then. I like it. I dislike it even more now. This book was this was a very frustrating book to me. I have opinions. I have annotated notes. So I don't want it to come across as people who are frustrated with reading and then they have nothing to back it up, because that's not what this is. This episode will probably sound like a bitch fest. So if you do love the book, it's up to you if you want to keep listening, because I think everybody has a different way of, hearing both sides to the story. You could still like something, but respect where somebody else is coming from. I think that's a good precursor and kind of disclaimer as we go into this episode.
We mentioned it, or I brought it up to you in our previous Serpent and Dove episode. Is Lou Reed's Manic Pixie Dream Girl?
Yes. Absolutely. I feel like that was solidified here in this episode, because even there's a line that is said right in the beginning where his mom says to him, to Reed, about just the LeBlancs in general, Morgane and Lou. They're wild and free and excessive. They're addictive. They consume us and make us feel alive. And that just that right at the beginning, at the top of the story. And that right away, I think it reminded me of the conversation that we had last week. But then I don't know if I was there were times where she was just frustrating, the mom, Helene was, because sometimes I'm thinking, oh my God, Reed, you've known her for 2.2 seconds and you're straight up mama's boy. Clearly you have childhood trauma. You need to be in therapy. You are seeking love from anywhere else but yourself. And then other times she had her own agenda, I think.
And so you could say that one of the themes of this book would be like accepting yourself. And then another theme would be looking at the world through rose-colored glasses, which is, they like say that later on in the book. And Helene absolutely is looking at Auguste with rose-colored glasses, the king, and Reed too. And it's just so incredibly frustrating. Like all of this is so incredibly frustrating. Reed even says later on in the book, like when we get like a 0.1 of spice, like there's just nothing here, right?
Yeah, don't expect spice. I mean,
yeah. There's nothing here. But he says, Reed says to Lou, like, you make me feel alive. It's like, it's so fucking frustrating.
Anything was going to make him feel alive. He grew up in a monastery.
For real. For real. Okay. So I think I mentioned in our last episode that this book was a lot of like side quests and you don't actually get to the plot until the end, right?
The last 60 pages, I feel like the whole time, there were a lot of things in this book where I was thinking, oh my gosh, all these stories, how does everybody keep dying and coming back to life? That was frustrating. And that's coming from me. I want a happy ending I always love a happily ever after. And that kept happening. And then, of course, Ansel dies and I go, okay, well, shot myself in the foot there. But it was just, I don't know. It wasn't for me. I don't know if the side quest, and then we were talking about the side quest, and I'm thinking of how that's your preferred method of playing video games. So I go, okay, this could have been up Laura's alley with all the little side quests. It was all over the place. It honestly felt like it was all over the place.
Yeah, all over the place, like meandering, kind of weird. And as I told you earlier, Claude Devereaux has a broken back from carrying this book. He was the like guiding light, the saving everything. He was great. I loved his reveal at the end. He was the best part of this book, hands down.
Easily.
Oh my God. I cannot wait for you to get to the audio so you can hear what the narrator does with him because
Is it good at least? Is that okay?
I will say nothing.
Oh, Lord. At first, immediately upon him entering the page, you knew something was up. I didn't know if it was good or bad. I go, this guy is trouble. And you knew it. You assume he's trouble right off the bat because he approaches them. And that should put anybody on high alert. And it did. But then when they later approach him to help, basically, hey, can you take this guy off my back, Lou, to take Reed? You knew I was like, this isn't going to be terrible. This is because he already knows magic exists. He already knows who she is. He hasn't turned anybody in. There's a bigger thing going on here. I didn't know what it was.
The only thing that I found relatable in this book is when Lou almost burns all of her hair off, dyeing it blonde. I was like, hey, I know exactly what that feels like. That's the only part that I related to in this book at all. I don't mean to just like shit on it constantly. It just was not for me in any way, shape, or form, which is so interesting because like if you look at it objectively, all the pieces are there, right? You got witches, you got blood witches, you got like France. You have, like the church is involved and religion is involved. You have old gods and goddesses are there. Werewolves. They mention mermaids. I didn't see any goddamn mermaids. Yeah, the politics.
Like if you bullet pointed all these things out on paper, you'd be like, I'm going to eat this shit up. This is absolutely up my alley. But it's not there. That's how I felt with Shadow and Bone. I know people love it. And they don't just love it. They live it. They breathe it. They love and live within the Grishaverse. I totally respect that. I don't get where, but again, it's not written for me. So it was interesting to do this YA read at this point a little bit more objectively. And as opposed to where I'm usually on one end of the spectrum when it comes to how passionate I am about the books that we've been reading, I found myself on the other side of the spectrum where I was frustrated a lot. And whereas with the Serpent and Dove frustration came a lot with the patriarchal society, the frustration came a lot with Reed and him trying to fix Lou and not accepting her as what she is. I mean, he was trying to tell her, basically, we can fight for it. If I win, you don't use your magic anymore. And if I win, I'll reluctantly learn how to use it. And that was really frustrating. And again, I refer back to like last week's episode, because we even talked about if this was a relationship in the real world, would this sustain? And it wouldn't. I mean, granted, you do have relationships like this that I don't want to say they sustain. They more or less agree to be miserable and complacent in the rest of their relationship. However, that's just that was even more ingrained here. Like, there's going to be that resentment, and then of course I'm screaming and go, you're being a little bitch. There are bigger things at play. You don't. And he goes, not only do I not want to learn magic, I won't. What? There people are going to die. There's going to be a massacre, and you won't want to do the smallest thing, even if it was like, this is a temporary fix. This is a Band-Aid, but when everything's said and done, I'm out. It's just like Lou did the same thing when she looked at the bigger picture and she wanted life or death. She goes, I choose life. And what's the Band-Aid? I'm not going to use magic for X amount of years, so I'm not traced. What is so hard about that?
I love your passion. They are, to me, one of the most toxic couples I have ever come across in reading. And I know people will be like, oh, but hear me out. They don't know each other at all, right? Everything that they know was like based on a lie, and like slowly things start to come out. But Reed even says like, you're keeping secrets again. You need to tell me all your secrets. It's like, but no, I do not, because she knew how he would react.
And he did it again. When Baz showed up, he's like, the deception still hurt. At that time, when she took Baz's memories, they had nothing. There was not even a relationship. So how are you going to penalize how is he going to penalize her when nothing was even established? Of course she took his memories. Yeah, because she was saving her and her best friend. My passion comes from my frustration. He's just a dumb fuck. He's so stupid.
And it's not even that. Like, the two of them together, there's a TikTok that is like, you have individually smart people, and then you put them together and like all their brain cells die and they have to share one between the two of them.
Yeah, but that's usually because it's like you're joking. The way I've seen that audio is because it's your group of friends. Like,
yeah. We
all are very, like, our group, like, we are all very smart individuals. Put us together, we are on the floor quoting Grandma's Boy, like, laughing.
But I think it's applicable here because, like, think about it. They don't know each other very well. She's a witch. He's a witch hunter, like cliche, whatever. But they are willing, I would say Lou is willing to risk everything for him.
What is he risking? Honestly,
like, nothing. He like, you could say, oh, he gave up his whole life. He murdered his father. Okay, fine. Yes.
She was dying anyway. Like, if you weren't willing to come to her rescue. And you know what bothers me about him? Amongst other things, everything comes down to feeling like he has this duty and like honoring something. He goes, we're married. I made a vow. Okay, but you know how many people lean into that whole, I made a vow, and that doesn't mean you're happy. I mean, think of there's a reason people get divorced, and I don't mean that in a pessimistic sort of way. If everybody honored their vow, you're doing something not because you want to, it's out of obligation. And that's where I have like, don't be with me because you feel obligated to be with me at this point. Like, fuck you. I can do without the obligation.
They're not even legally married, as his mother points out over and over again because she used a fake name. I see them as this couple that thrives in chaos, right? They will do anything to get each other back because there's always danger. But as you said, if they settle down and have like a mundane life, they'll hate each other, right? Like they need something to focus on to distract them from their own like problems. It's just so.
It's you're focusing on the external components because the second you start reflecting internally on like the actual issue, again, like this is if we're like creating it to real life, that's when shit's gonna hit the fan, and then you're gonna have to kind of come to terms with what's really going on between you two in a relationship.
And also, I just want to point out that they use sex as a huge like distractor, right? Because they wanted to fuck in the pool and they get caught, and then he has to, kill the chasseurs, and that's a whole thing, and then they fuck in the
before the
like right before all the shit goes down, and they go into the tunnels, and Lou says like, and I felt complete. It's like,
I hated that. Like we came together, but they clearly the author, this is YA, she meant it as a joining of each other.
Yeah, like they're and it was like what was broken is now fixed, and we created something new together. It's
That's like people who have babies.
Yeah,
because it's
exactly.
like a save me baby.
Mm-hmm. That was exactly what I was thinking. And then right after that, Lou tricks Reed, bars the door with magic, and like goes off to save,
self-sacrifice trope.
Yeah, like on her own. Just he's just so frustrating. I just can't stand him. The only part of him that I like understand and acknowledge and appreciate is that he was dealing with killing his father, and he says, and that's why I appreciate it, he says like, I really made this plan, really my subconscious, just to get me back here for the funeral. I didn't realize like how much I needed this closure and the funeral until I got here. So like I understand that, I get that, but everything else about him is just trash. He's a trash person. He's a trash. Ugh.
What frustrated me about, maybe that's just the whole grief of it all, was it was written as if, let me just go to the funeral and then everything's fine. And I guess seeing such a difference in writing the way Tracy Deonn did in Legendborn, and seeing the way this is written in Handling Grief, vastly different. So I also didn't respect that. I don't know if respect is the right word for me personally. It felt very dismissive of, this is a paternal figure in this person's life because that's how he was raised. And all of a sudden it's just like, go to the funeral and then you'll be fine. What?
It's all just like complete horseshit. I really thought reading this the first time that I was going to like this group as a found family. I was like, they're going to come together and be a found family.
They're still not.
Nope.
They're still
not even close. Oh my God. Just like, what even is this? I don't know. All I have to say is the double cross betrayal at the end. I was like, finally something happened.
Going back to the found family trope for a second, it frustrated me with Coco because they're not a found family. Every time somebody was in peril, physical danger, they leaned into Coco to be like, hey, bring them back to life. Hey, can you do something? Hey. And this is happening
Bonnie Bennett.
Yes. And it frustrated me because now they know what it means when she's saving, what it means that when she's exerting herself to save these people, and they still frickin' do it. And I mean, granted, that is the same thing as Bonnie Bennett. They know what the risks are, and they still have these demands of her. And it was really frustrating because people who weren't even her friends, let's take Lou out of it. Could you do something? Like for me, I know it's, I mean, maybe I'm just a shitty person. At some point, I would be like, I could, not for you.
Yeah, like where's the line, right? Like you have to, and this kind of maybe because we're like a little bit older and we can like see, but like there has to be a boundary, right? There has to be a line because you can be like self-sacrificing to a point, but at what point does your like self-preservation kick in? Oh my God. Like Coco, correct me if I'm wrong, because I was just angry during this whole reread, so I'm like blinded by rage. Like Coco was like stabbed in the stomach or something, right? Like she's like bleeding out.
She was getting hurt too.
And she's still like, let me near, I'll fix him. Like I'll fix him, like with the werewolves, I think, right? I was just like, what are you doing? These people don't appreciate you. And then the whole Ansel thing with her, I just was just so frustrating.
With where she was like, I wanted to love him, I kissed him twice, blah blah blah, to see if it really, that part of him.
Not even that. Just like, I understand reveling in the attention of somebody and you not actually like liking them. Like I get that. I'm a bad person, but just the way that everyone treated Ansel, like all he wanted to do was be useful, right? That's all he wanted to do. And they treated him like shit. Everyone treated him like shit.
You would think Lou did?
I think Lou, I think she was only nice to him like out of spite. Like, I'm going to be nice to him and train him because, you know, he was a chasseur and like, fuck them. You know, I'm gonna turn this other one because, yeah, that's how I read it. You know, he's young. He's much younger.
Yeah, and he's not a chasseur. He was training to be because he never even did the tournament or whatever. He was just he was basically in the qualifiers.
Right. Yeah. Oh, that was something else that really bothered me. I know I'm angry. I'm jumping all over the place. When they're going to the werewolves, right? And he has the werewolf bone dagger. And then he's telling Lou, he's like, oh, well, I didn't like come, you know, I stumbled upon the pack. Like I lied to you to impress you. Just like,
how come where's that double standard?
Exactly.
Where's that? Okay. I'm not saying he wasn't peacocking because whatever. But the double standard of, sure, you lied to me. But I lied to you, but that's no big deal. But you betrayed me. What?
Yeah, and he murdered a child. Like, let's not. I mean, I think the son was older. And Adrian. I think he was like older, but like he wasn't like a grown ass adult.
He wasn't grown. They made it I don't remember the exact language, but they made it a point to say he was young.
Yeah,
he was a young child.
Yeah, so he like straight up. I wanted Blaze just to like fucking end somebody. You know, not Bo, not Coco, not Lou, not Ansel, but like someone else. Just destroy them. Just, oh my God. It was so fucking frustrating. Where are the mermaids?
Why would you bring that up and then obviously at this point it's a seed for the next, I would assume, you know, but I'm frustrated and it's not because when you read a book. And I'm trying to think, like with the end of Crown of Gilded Bones, we were frustrated with some of the choices that were made, but we could not wait for the next steps, right? You were just frustrated that it's over with some of the choices, but you also wanted more. I'm frustrated with this as a body of work.
I'm frustrated. We have to read the next one.
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think of another book that has recently been re-announced that it's been picked up by a streaming service, and they've had the rights had been Elizabeth Banks has had the rights in production for some time, and then they re-announced that it's going to a streaming service, And we just DNF'd it. I did the first 2 books. It wasn't for me. Ergo, we don't continue. Here we are having to continue this book that I was so, I don't want to say, I was gung-ho for Lou's character and her fuck the patriarchy. And now it's just this book I got to deal with Reed again. I don't want to fucking deal with him. He's really pissing me off. He's everything about him is just go to therapy. You have your shit to deal with. The way the women are written, they could be so much stronger. How come this feels like it's written from a male point of view in the respect that, not even the respect, the way the women are written, everything's like, oh my God, I'm broken because of a man. No, there's going to be a lot. Don't get me wrong. We've all been heartbroken at some point. But there are other things that are going to break me a lot harder than heartbreak.
I mean, let women be powerful, right? Let them be powerful. And I think Lou's mom is a very, one-dimensional villain to me. Everyone said, oh, she was good and now she's crazy. She's crazy. That's just what it is now.
Well, this goes back to our villains episode where you can have these depth and deep backstories of male villains, and even with what we're in the books that we read, you understand even the Darkling, because the Darkling at the end of the day, he's not really morally gray. I think we've agreed to that, but having a little bit of the backstory from the book and then visually from the show, you're like, I do understand. Or even history with Ivan the Terrible, you're like, he was terrible, but now you have a little bit, we know some of these actual backstories. You're not getting that with Morgaine.
You get a little, just a tiny slice with the wood rose.
But also, I mean, a little bit with the way the magic works, the give and exchange, the equality of the balance of everything. Or if you give up a memory, if you take a memory, you give up one of yours. So obviously, we are to an extent, we are created from our memories. Other times, we've compartmentalized so much that we don't even realize that the memories are there. So you can't really say oh, that created you who you are. Well, could it? Because I didn't even remember. I locked that shit was under lock and key. But tell me, I gasped when Reed says with disdain, "You're not a monster. You're just like your mother."
You're just like your mother.
I was like, you piece of shit. That is a low blow.
And especially because when he says that, she has gone through she has the white hair and so she's physically resembling her mother. And then to say it again, it's just oh my God. And
he
then
knew what he was, and part of it, I was so mad. And then the other part of it, I know if I know somebody's emotional trigger, I'll go there. I might not mean it, but I'll go there. So I was so mad at him, but then I was like, but I'm so guilty of this too.
But also I think in the context of this story, right? It's about how, which is shitty, Magic isn't good or evil. It just is. And it's up to the wielder to choose how to use it.
I liked that.
Yeah.
But that is magic. That is, I mean, granted you have stories of dark magic and stuff, but the people who are tapping into dark magic are typically doing darker things. So
yeah, it's just, oh my God. But then Lou, okay. Some of my favorite parts of this book were when Lou just lost control, right? I love a powerful woman who just doesn't give a fuck, right? So when she ices over the werewolf swamp, right? And she's her eyes are cold and dead. Although I don't like that she burned Coco. That was not cool. But, later on. But just Lou using her power to make change, right? And to kind of put everything more or less on an even playing field. Okay, fine. But she's doing it all for Reed because he is incapable of doing it himself because he hates himself so much because he hates his magic. And then it made me so frustrating because I don't know how it was in the the written word, but like his little voices that he hears, like seek us, seek us, seek us, like
it's just italicized.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So it's like, and he like actively pushes it down and is like, no, no, no. But then when he's desperate enough, he'll use it. It's like, you're such a piece of crap.
That's repeated. And that even when Baz came to attack, everybody was frustrated at Helene LaBelle, his mom, because they said, like, she goes, well, I didn't use my magic because I was waiting for him to tap into his magic. And they keep leaning into him, hoping that something's going to spark it. He's just being thick-headed about it. I don't want to do it. And then, like, he doesn't want to use his magic, but then he gets butthurt about his Belisarda, and he's like, without my Belisarda, I was nothing. Okay, identity crisis with your fragile masculinity, like, I don't have a weapon. I am not a man.
It's just like a nice metaphor for penis, right? Like,
oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's just like an extension of his dick. He's like, I don't have it. And then he's like, and I have Jean-Luc's, and it's not the same. It's not mine.
It's like,
shut
up.
Get
over yourself. It kind of reminded me of initially, because how I was reading it, I go, are the Belisardas? Is it like the wands in Harry Potter where you can use it, but they don't call to you? It was very.
It's like,
but
no,
they're not. They're not. And
no,
that was
they're
something they have magic. We know they have magic, but the Belisarda does not choose the wielder the way the wand does. So again, another extension of dick. But it's just I feel like if you're gonna look at this critically, you could rip apart these last two books in a women and gender studies class.
Oh, easily. My favorite WGS professor just retired, so I'm sad that she won't have the opportunity because she would just eat this up. Somebody that I actually felt like genuinely bad for was Celie. Celie gets kidnapped and has to spend like 2 weeks in the coffin of her slowly decomposing sister and is like covered in dead body fluids. Gross. And Lou is like, she will never recover from this.
Honestly, mentally, even if I was physically okay, just kill me at that point. Because mentally, I don't care how much therapy you're in. You can't recover from that mentally. I don't want to say can't. God forbid this has happened to somebody who is listening. It's just to have that image replayed in your head over and over again, to live those moments. It's awful.
No, it's terrible, right? And Lou like acknowledging like this is really terrible. However, Lou and Reed, when Jean-Luc like bursts in, is like, they have Celie, and like they're weird, like it's not like jealousy, but it's like
who?
Lou and Reed, right? Because we get both of their perspectives, and Lou's like, Celie, and then Reed is like, well, I don't love her anymore, but I feel a certain way, and like she's with Jean-Luc, and like I do love when Lou called Jean-Luc out on his shit. He's like, oh, did you fuck her? Yeah.
I was like, and he goes, that's a yes. I and everybody, like, nobody saw it. She saw through the bullshit, and she goes, well, makes sense. You've always gone after Reed's sloppy seconds. That's my man. That was when book one Lou jumped out, and I go, yes, like that's the Lou that I like. That's the Lou that made me like book one.
And that's kind of the only time we see book one Lou is right there. Because she becomes this codependent, toxic person who just like loses the big picture, right?
In a way, Reed created that, though, because that's what he wanted, and her love for him kind of superseded who she was as a person. She made him the priority instead of herself. And it's okay. And I say that not to sound like, oh, if you focus on yourself, you're a selfish person. No, any therapist will tell you that you need to be able to save yourself before you can help others. They tell you that on airplanes all the time. You need to take care of yourself before you can take care of others. How are you supposed to give out, pieces of you in a healthy way if you're completely codependent and invested in somebody else instead of using that on yourself?
And I can see maybe a little bit of where Lou is coming from, because to her, Reed is like this upstanding, moral, he's tall, tall redhead. And that's like her goal, right? She's like, he will make me a better person. And I want this end with him.
Because she already has all that negative self-talk.
Exactly. And on the flip side, Reed is like, you make me feel alive. I was dead before. And this life that we have, together. So I can see their very horrible perspectives of each other. I mean, that's not healthy.
Okay. Well, then I think the fact that we're acknowledging that is, we acknowledge that they're toxic, and you acknowledging where you understand where those how those pieces of the puzzle fit and why.
Yeah. I mean, because I can see that. I can see, coming from, she was I want to say street rat. That's not what I mean. She's like a thief, on the street, and she has this goal, and he's her shining knight who came and saves her and everything. And she is a Manic Pixie dream girl. So I get it, but it's awful. And it is, as you said, not sustainable. And I cannot see them settling down together and having a boring, mundane life and being happy. There's just too much. This is also kind of my problem with the end of the Hunger Games. Just, throwing it out there. It's like you're trauma bonded.
Right.
And because you're trauma bonded, you are afraid to let go of that, because then you are alone.
You don't know how to exist outside of that, especially when it's not just, I don't want to say typically. You have relationships that have one singular trauma that is shared, and there's going to be an attachment. This has had what they've gone through in the last couple weeks, months, whatever.
Fortnite.
There we go.
They say it over and over again.
Over and over again. It is reoccurring in every single. So it's just it's infusing that bond even more. And his mom even says, she goes, "This is going to be your life with her. If you're with her, this is going to be the rest of your life. You're going to be running and hiding and fighting." And you're like, she's not again. Sometimes you're frustrated, but you're like, she's not wrong.
Mm-mm. She's not wrong. Another male character that bothered me in this book was Bo. What happened to Bo? He became this whiny, weird, I don't know. I really liked him.
He was jealous over Ansel?
Yeah, it was just so weird. And then I understand having, as we said earlier, rose-colored glasses, dealing with parental figures and having that ripped out from him and that kind of trauma. I understand Bo in that moment, but all of his bitching and whining, I just didn't understand. And he's like, "I'm not an actor. I'll do your sums." When he's part of the carnival or whatever, it was just weird. And when Reed was shirtless, with the knives and stuff, all I could think of was Lorcan.
Me too!
Yeah. I was like, oh, it's another 7-foot-tall shirtless man throwing knives. Oh, it's Lorcan.
I can do with a Lorcan, a lead novella.
Easily.
I don't want a novella. I did want a Bo novella with Coco.
Yeah.
But not this Bo.
No,
not book 2. What happened to the characters? What's that TikTok sound? What happened to the original plot? That's what this feels like.
Yeah, it really does. It's just, whoa. Blood witches eating hearts. Cool. Blood witches.
I was going to say, it doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, no, cool. I like the blood witches funeral kind of traditions. I liked that. I don't like how the Blood Witches are, you know, like starving and freezing and it's all Coco's fault, right? Like, I don't like that.
I was going to say that was, I didn't understand. Yes, she left, but what difference would it have made if she stayed? Because she's just the princess. Let's not forget that La Voisin is the queen. So technically, that's some queen shit she needs to handle. Why are you passing it off to the princess?
Yeah, like I did not understand. However, the grimoire reminded me of the Care of Magical Creatures Hagrid book.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, because of the skin and it like moves and stuff.
She was like, "Is this weird that I feel like it's a lie?"
She's like, "No, because it's totally weird." Like, it is weird. The Wraith, what's her, Nicolina?
Oh, yes. Nicolina or Nishalina. I don't know. I think I read it Nicolina.
Yeah. She was interesting. I like was creeped out and was intrigued by her, and I liked her sing-song, like kind of prophecy situation.
She always was singing in like poems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was very eerie.
But she was interesting, I think is what it is. Like, there was so little that was interesting in this story, but like she was interesting. It's like her and Claude and the twins, right?
The brothers.
The brothers, like they were great. They were great.
I thought, okay, I like the Madagots. They're like I don't know. I like the idea there would be like these little cat. There was like a cat and then a bat maybe, and then one turned into like a something else. I can't remember. There were three.
Fox? I think a fox. Yeah.
And I thought it was like in the beginning of the book, you know, you hear about the Madagots and you hear that, you know, they really only appear to troubled souls. And so you had the one that appeared with Reed in the beginning, Absalom, and always followed him. And then you find out that, you know, Lou goes off and Absalom starts following Lou. And you're like, okay. And, you know, everybody's shocked. And like, how does nobody realize that she's the troubled soul? And then they keep appearing and they're like, oh, people have heard about one Madagot following a person, let alone multiple. I'm like, how does nobody realize that she's carrying she's carrying a lot of shit right now? But I like the idea of like the pet's just like, I don't know, maybe I really wanted a pet.
Yeah, no, me too. And they like do messages for her and like
it's
kind of
like the otters in Crescent City.
Yeah, and they kind of like scout, you know, out. And she names them all, and everyone's like, "You name them?" It's like, yeah, I fucking named them. Like they're with me all the time.
Absalom, Brigitte, and Charles.
Yeah,
I remember I was reading, and it said something about Charles, and I go, "Who's Charles?" Like I couldn't, and then it's that's the one who did the mess. I go, oh, it's the other Madagot.
Yeah. Yeah. So Lou obviously has a lot of trauma, and she has a lot of trauma with her mother. And wow, her mom is, as we said, kind of a one-dimensional villain and is pretty shitty. What do you think?
Well, I even put in the notes how some things that the way her mom acted. Like, let's just, I mean, where do you begin? The fact that she was born to die, which is so similar to some of the other books that we've read. I won't go there because I'm trying to be spoiler free this episode. But I mean, cliche mother who's always gaslighting her kid, right? I mean, oh, you would do that to me, and I'm your mother. You know, everything that she said, it was always backed with, but I'm your mother. You're literally trying to kill me. You know, we talk about, like, even as adults, we're still trying to learn how to create boundaries for ourselves and the parental figures in our lives. Here she is trying to do it. It's just very frustrating. I mean, she's not a good, like you said, very one-dimensional. But I can't help but think there needs to be a little bit more of a backstory. Again, though, with Woodwose, and, you know, you find out about, like, there was the one guy that she dated where she opened the cadaver, put rocks in, and sunk at the bottom of the Melancholy Lake. Like, what? But I feel like some of these backstories, and maybe that's me wanting to know more about her character, but I was frustrated that every time that this Morgaine was upset, it was at the hands of a man.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No doubt. And you say gaslighting. So, Morgaine is always like, you know, you're my, like, I'm your mother. But then she screams at Woodrose, like, she's his. She's not mine. Like, she could have been ours, but she's not ours. She's his. So, like, it's weird. Like, she doesn't take ownership of Lou, but then she expects Lou to, like, love and respect her as a mother. It's like classic gaslighting. Like, what the absolute fuck is that? Just,
I gave you a roof over your head. Are you telling me I'm a terrible mother?
Yes.
Like, yes, I kind of am.
Yeah, it's just absolute trash. I just cannot. Like, what is the test? The Bendel test, where like two women have to have a talk, not mentioning a man. Like, does this pass? No, it doesn't. No, God, ugh. So Reed doesn't.
Bechdel test.
I was
like, Bendel. Why do I know Bendel? I'm thinking of Henry Bendel, like the first.
Bechdel, yeah. I knew it was close.
Bechdel test of work must feature at least two women. These women must talk to each other, and their conversation must concern something other than a man. A lot of Hollywood movies fail at the Bechdel test miserably. That's the Oxford definition.
It's true, because they're mostly written by men. So, yeah, there's only... Yeah, there are examples. There are examples. Look them up. It's fascinating. So Reed hates himself. Does he hate witches? I think so. Right? I think so. I think he hates himself most of all, and I think he hates that Lou won't change for him. She won't become this like version of her that he has in his head because she's using magic. No, go.
You know what? I don't know why I just clicked on. It's like when Vampire Diaries, spoilers. It's like when Stefan, and so Elena is already a vampire. She's with Damon, kind of. They're like whatever they are right now. And Stefan wants to get the cure because he wants Elena to be back to the perfect version for him. Not what makes her best, not what Elena wants to be or what makes Elena happy. He wants Elena to himself, and the perfect version of Elena is human version of Elena. And that's what this is. And that was the Elena that Stefan loved. And Damon loved her in every aspect of who she was, because quote unquote the darker side of Elena is like what Stefan likes to refer to it as. That's still part of her. It's, it was just kind of like brought out more as a vampire. And so like Damon loved her as a human. Damon loved her in the afterlife. Damon loved her as a like he loved every facet of her, and Stefan couldn't accept that. And then it brings me back to Reed said this quote, like this internal dialogue where he goes, perhaps Lou wasn't like other witches. Perhaps they were like her. Where the fuck have you been? Yes, you stupid piece of shit.
Oh, he's a trash man. He's just so bad.
Okay, like, honestly, I don't want to say I don't want to offend anybody, because at this point we probably have, but honestly, what is it about their relationship that is so appealing? Or is it that we are older and maybe we would have kind of been sucked into this when we were Lou's age too? Because I'm telling you, if somebody told me, oh my gosh, you make me feel alive, you're everything I ever wanted, you give me such a zest for life, those are some nice things to hear.
But then I think we've all seen 500 Days of Summer, so we know how that ends, right?
I haven't.
You haven't seen 500 Days of Summer? Oh
no,
my gosh.
Not because I don't want to. I think when it came out, and then I never actively went back to see it. I mean, I know the premise, I know it's 500 days of this girl named Summer, and she was like, I don't want a relationship. And he's like, but maybe I'll change her mind.
Yeah, there's a whole thing about when you rewatch it, like later on as an adult with, and he's the villain because she was very upfront and clear about everything. Like, I don't want a relationship. I don't want this long term. And he did try and try and try. And then he's angry when she finds somebody that she does like want that with. And he's just like beyond.
But I guess when the movie came out and the demographic that it was tapping into, everybody was thinking Summer was the bad guy.
Yeah, because why wouldn't you want this adorable man? You know, it's Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt, yeah.
Like, we love him. Like, he's wonderful. Why wouldn't you want that man? But, like, now, and he has even come out and said, like, on social media, like, I was the villain. Like, I was like, that's how it was played.
Well, that's even, like, with, you know, on something smaller with Friends, and I know you haven't really watched the show, but Ross and Rachel, the big conversation when the show came out, and it came out in the early 90s, so I definitely wasn't I've watched it through reruns. I wasn't watching it, you know, when it first came out, where the huge conversation was Ross and Rachel were on a break, you know, and they were on a break, so Ross went and slept with somebody else, and then Rachel found out, and everybody was like, oh my gosh, Team Rachel, Team Rachel. But now, all these years later, and they just did a reunion on HBO, like a reunion special, everybody was like, no, like they weren't in a relationship together. Like, Ross isn't the bad guy. And again, that comes with being able to take a step back and being adults and rewatching things from a different view, which again is like kind of the premise of some of the things that we're covering in this podcast of, you know, like things that we would have been completely immersed in, looking at these conversations from our lived experience since then.
It's just, that's kind of, well, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I really love this podcast, is because we're able to do that and like re-examine all these things from like our perspective. I mean, that's the whole premise of it. That's like our trailer. Like,
that's how it started off. And then of course we're going to fangirl, because why would we not love something without being super passionate about it?
Yeah, for real. So like, I guess reflecting is important. And if you do love these two books, like, good on you. You are allowed to love whatever you want, right? Like, we're not shaming it. Just for us, this does not hit home for us in any way, shape, or form.
And I think just to reverse what we said earlier in this episode, where we said, you know what, this isn't the target audience, this isn't for us. You can have that, you know, respectful discourse of saying, you know what, I really loved the book. I am interested in hearing your opinions of why, you know, listening to us, why we might not have liked it. On the flip side of that, I would love to, and we've said that, like, and I don't mean it in a way where I feel like, oh, how can you like this? I'm going to chastise somebody. No, there has to be a takeaway that made people like this so much. And I am curious. It doesn't mean it's going to shift my opinion of my experience with these books so far, but it would be interesting to understand why. Like, what was it that really struck you as a reader?
Because there are so many options, right? And so many other books that kind of handle these things differently. In I'm not going to say better ways, but just like different ways. And I guess, you know, we love strong, powerful women. We like men who let women make their own choices and live their own lives. And that's just not what we see here. And that's probably, you know, a big part of our frustration. So yeah, I don't know. I've been so angry all week just reading this book. So I am glad that we are done with it. I am glad that I do not have to listen to the narrators.
Yeah, but I feel like you're going to read it and it's going to be a hard thing to read through. Like, you're going to read, because you're going to be frustrated. You're going to read 5 pages, put it down, do like a couple hour scrolls on TikTok, go back, still be bored, and you find something else that's going to be more entertaining. And the difficult thing is, whereas you could be frustrated reading, you could still multitask. Like, I know you've probably played your games, or you had like something else going on in the background, or packing, whatever you have going on. You have to sit down and put time into the reading with this one. And it was already a struggle with the audiobook. So I feel like that's, you can't read it fast enough.
I am so excited for you. I cannot wait to hear your opinions with the audio. I cannot. I am so stoked.
You know, I know all I know. And you've left, I'm kind of going, I'm going into the audio blind, except that I know you do not like the male narrator. You won't tell me if it's because of his cadence, if there's some accent, if there's different inflections on things that he says.
You'll know right away. Right away. You will know exactly what I mean. Like a paragraph in, you'll be like, oh.
oh no. Well, I really felt that way about a recent series that I was reading where it was fun. It was light. I wasn't expecting it to be this huge thing. But then it was being read from a male perspective. And it was the retelling that I was telling
I know what you're
about.
talking about.
I'm being super vague right now.
I know.
Intentionally. And the male one, I go, what is this? This is supposed to be a really hot, sexy guy. And I am not getting that from this audio. And there's going to be another perspective coming out in the winter or something. And I'm gonna read the book because I cannot be tortured having to deal with that narrator again. And I know that was why. And I think that was the first time where I go, oh, this is what Laura meant with the narrator.
Yeah, you got to have good narrators. If you don't have good narrators,
I definitely have sent some to Rachel of like the type, like the fan cast or like how you imagine this character, and imagining him like these like Jason Momoa type people, and I got this little Topher Grace like audio going on. I don't need Eric Foreman narrating my shit. It was just vastly different.
No one needs Eric Foreman. Donna didn't even need Eric Foreman. Let's just put that out there. No.
But you know what? You know what Donna was? She was a feminist icon in the 70s. She was about that shit. She was strong and powerful, and she would eat men for breakfast.
Ugh. And she waited for him. Ugh. Yeah, I will say I do really enjoy that 70s show, but I feel like the last season shouldn't exist.
I pretend the last season doesn't exist.
Yeah, no. And I like Jackie and Hyde together personally, but that's me.
I do like them. I love that Jackie and Hyde are together. And this totally took a different turn. I love that Jackie and Hyde are together. But I still like the fact that Jackie and Kelso are together in real life.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
I love that Jackie and Kelso are together in real life, but I like that Hyde didn't let her get away with her shit.
Yeah.
I really liked that.
We are That 70s Show fans, just throwing that out there. So clearly we're done. We're done. We're obviously, we're done. We're done. Jess, final thoughts.
Oh, we have to do it again. That's my final thought.
Oh my God, one more.
I have to waste my Audible credit.
Yep. Well, you
did too.
I did too. Yeah. I mean, what else is there to say? I think we've said it all. Not fans. If you are a fan, please let us know why you love this in a respectful conversation. Let's have a nice discourse kind of situation. We're not gonna shit on you, and please don't shit on us. I would really genuinely like to know what you love about this, because maybe if we know why someone loves this, we can see it from a different perspective.
I 100% agree. I think it's necessary to understand. We always talk about different lived experiences, different shared experiences, and even when you have different points of views in the books, I think I'll just say ACOFAE for the sake. You have people who can at least say, you know what, I might not like Nesta, but I don't hate her like I used to, because you have a different perspective. And that's really what it is. It's understanding, we all have had different lived experiences. So maybe you haven't had the same ones that Laura and I have had. So you're going to be reading this at your vision's going to be skewed differently. Yep.
Lovely. Beautiful way to end it.
So feel free to follow us on Instagram at ACOFAE Podcast. We're also on TikTok at ACOFAE Laura and ACOFAE Jessica.
And thank you so much for listening. And we will be back next week with our fantastic conclusion to our experiment.
No, I don't think it's next week. But it's in the coming weeks. We'll go for it.
We're getting there.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good one.
Bye.